What's going on, you guys? Welcome to another episode review for Rurouni Kenshin. This is episode 20 and 21. With me, as always, I have Blizzbait.
Mhm. So before this well, before the episode came out, based on the title, I initially thought that this was going to be like a past story arc for Kenshin's time as the Botosai, but it didn't turn out that way. It just ended up being
I,
like, while it technically was a past story arc,
yeah,
but it was during the time when before Kenshin met Kaoru at the
I didn't,
I
I,
So
I didn't really
and
think it was gonna be that, mostly because we already have the, this, I forget what the story arc is. I guess the, Samurai X, the story arc, that kind of goes over his time as the Batosai and further goes into the, uh, some of the people that he killed that we see at the beginning of the series and sort of what happened after that. Um, but I mean, I guess it could have been another story from his time as the Batosai. Um, but I didn't really think they were going to go into like I guess you'd say like the Samurai X story arc yet, because I feel like it probably happens later on in the series if I could.
So, Kenshin's story in these two episodes, it pretty much shows like in his time, uh, as a Rurouni before, like merely days before he met Kaoru at the dojo, is while visiting Yokohama, Kenshin meets. Well, he first meets a rickshaw puller named Dunkichi, and of course they eventually meet up with like a foreign doctor named Dr. Elder, and of course they're
Who's wearing like a
yeah,
plain doctor mask?
yeah, so they're confronted by like a lot of these like I guess like these henchmen from another doctor, um who wants to I guess who wants to monopolize Western medicine, but also like doesn't appreciate Elder's treatment of like of the less fortunate. Like basically, she's treating like the the less fortunate citizens in Japan, basically just treating them for free of sorts.
Yeah,
Um, but Kenshin and Dunkichi don't know at this point that she's posing as a man.
I
So
honestly
uh,
like I thought it was really obvious, but um, yeah, I mean I already kind of saw that twist coming like 1,000 miles away, basically, um, because I mean she she doesn't really do much to hide it aside from wearing the mask and trying to put on a deeper voice. Um, Otherwise you can tell as a woman.
yeah, and so after helping out, well, after Kenshin and Dunkichi end up helping Doctor Elder, they end up like hanging out, having afternoon tea, and uh so like the later half of the episode shows them like hanging out parts of Yokohama, and eventually like later that night, uh Kenshin stays with Dr. Elder at the hotel for the night, which of course he eventually finds out by accident that that he finds out Elder is a woman.
Yeah. Um, Also, I guess Dr. Elder, of course, is like a foreign, uh, a foreign person. I guess supposedly from the U.S. I guess is where she's supposedly from because she doesn't speak proper Japanese. Um,
Yeah.
and basically, like after, of course, Kenshin discovers that she's a woman, she explains the reason like why she poses as well. Actually, we should also go over the there's this other swordsman that is accompanying the other doctor. I forget what his name was. It was like
Well, was it
Espilart.
Espelar?
Yeah,
Is
like he basically wants to fight Kenshin because he's like one of the last samurai that he's I guess the last samurai in the Meiji era. Or
Yeah.
And he carries around what looks to be like it looks to be a rapier at first, but in the next episode it's revealed it's some kind of I guess it's technically a rapier, but it looks like a drill that he carries around with him. Um but yeah, we get introduced to him, but then we also in the scene after Kenshin discovers that Eldar is a woman, she explains that the reason why she is posing as a man is because like in the medical field, nurses usually are women, and it's not usually doctors who are women, so she feels like she has to pretend to be a man basically to be accepted as a doctor.
Yeah. So this of course leads us into the next scene. Next episode in which which we see Don Kichi taking Dr. Elder outside in the middle of town, saying that they're meeting someone. But of
Yeah,
course, they
because
run into
well, earlier they had received a letter from I guess we find out it was from the other doctor, but they think it's a letter from a potential patient, I guess, that needs medical attention.
Mhm. Yeah. So eventually, Espelar shows up and pretty much takes down the carriage uh, that Tankichi's pulling. And instead of killing them both, he demands where Kenshin is. And Kenshin, of course, shows up soon afterwards. Pretty much, he's the one who gets the letter for Doctor Elder first, but he forgot to give it to her before she left. Before she left with Dankichi, so he ends up following them and runs into Esplar, who of course challenges him to to a sword fight, using a spiral bladed saber.
Yeah. Um, Basically, like he tries to thrust this sword at Kenshin, and Kenshin just pretty much ends up dodging most of his thrusts, and I think like destroying this destroying his sword with the Sakapoto, uh, and pretty easily takes him out. Um,
Mhm.
but
Yeah,
yeah, uh,
yeah, but of course at the same time we also see like the greedy doctor that ended up hiring Espelar, um, overseeing this whole fight, and instead of like letting them get away, he attempts to release a vial of smallpox, um, basically just to start up a pandemic around the town or potentially in the country. Um, so they try to stop the bottle from shattering on the floor before Espelar stops him. So they end up apprehending this the corrupt doctor, and I guess that's yeah, I guess that's where the whole conflict conflict ends from there.
yeah, I mean pretty much. And of course, Elder is about to go back, or I guess to depart back to the states, um, and she basically like asks Kenshin, I guess, about the scar on his face. Um, I forget what she says exactly. Like that it's I guess
Well, she notices that it's fairly
yeah,
recent. And, of course, she can tell, like, um, she mentions that, like, the scar represents everything that Kenshin's gone through, over his life as the Batosai. And we we also, we also see Espelar is also accompanying Dr. Elder, pretty much, reflecting over his failed goal to defeat Kenshin, and decides to, turn over a new leaf by, like, for example, he has, like, a new, fencing sword that is, like, more straight, and instead of his like spiral bladed screwdriver saber or whatever it is.
yeah. Um, and before she leaves too, I guess to show like how she sort of develops as a character in the short amount of time, she reveals that she's actually a woman to everybody. Because everybody came there to like thank her for what she's done. We see that the mother who had been injured before, she's now healed. Um,
Mhm.
and yeah, she reveals her identity. So I guess just to show that she's no longer afraid of revealing that she is a woman and also a doctor. Um, so yeah, I mean, and then of course we flash forward again to Genshin, um, just with everybody else, and they're kind of getting on him because they thought Genshin was going to talk about a story from long ago and not something that was fairly recent, because they discovered it was actually like 5 days or so before he had come to the dojo. Um, and we also see that Elder had said that Kenshin should briefly pause his traveling just to rest up and heal himself, and that's I guess maybe part of the reason why he decided to stay at the dojo. Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, that's kind of where the story arc ends. Um, it's another short like kind of 2 episode story arc, kind of like what we've been seeing for, I guess, ever since the story arc with the uh with what was it, Conryu?
Oh,
Yeah,
what's
Conryu.
yeah, Kanryu. I think there was also one with the Sanosuke as
Yeah,
well. Um, I it's also, yeah, I mean, it's another brief 2 episode story arc. I mean, it's okay, but do I find it necessary for the overall plot? Not really,
yeah.
because
I mean, I'm
I
pretty sure
mean,
it's not actually filler considering they're trying to follow the manga, but I mean, I do kind of wish it would kind of get back to like the main plot. Um, but I guess for the rest of the season, or well, I guess for the remaining episodes, they might just be going into these smaller story arcs until maybe like teasing people at the end of this of the season with what's his name uh yeah,
Are you talking about
Shishio, yeah,
Shishio?
Shishio. Um, I feel like that's what they might be doing. But yeah, I mean, it like I said, I thought it was a pretty, it's still a good story arc. It was pretty short, and I mean I mean it kind of feels. I mean, I know it's not filler, but it kind of feels like it. I guess it's there's good filler and there's bad filler, and this kind of feels like, I guess you'd say, good filler if anything, because it does kind of, I guess sort of give us pretty decent story about like what Kenshin did before all this, and I mean it was fine for what it was, I guess. But
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, but, of course, like, with the amount of time well, I mean, with the amount of episodes we have left, I think we only have, like, what, 3 more episodes
yeah,
left, I
it
think?
really
Or
doesn't
3 or 4
feel
more
like we're
episodes.
getting near the end of the season with the way things have been. Um, I mean, I say that I've said this about a few different series we talked about. The pacing has just been particularly slow. I mean, especially since the Conryu story arc. It feels like things had slowed down significantly.
Mhm. Yeah, I mean, so far, like, the adaptation has been alright, so far, but,
Yeah.
yeah, with the whole Connery arc, after that ended, it ended up veering off to like several different story arcs with some of the other characters, like Yahiko and Sanosuke, and of course one extra storyline with Kenshin, uh, mere days before he met up with Kaoru.
Mhm.
So it's yeah, I mean, yeah, it was okay for what it was. I have to wonder like what else they're gonna end up doing with the last set of episodes for this season in particular, because obviously this is not the end, and plus the whole storyline with Shishio is gonna last for much longer than whatever how many episodes this episode's gonna be.
Yeah. Yeah, most likely. But yeah, I don't really have too much else to say about these episodes. I don't know if you have anything else to say about it.
I mean, it was a decent story arc, but it's more or less running the same theme of like going on like these standalone story arcs with some of the different characters.
Yeah. I mean, like I said, I don't mind that. I feel like it's a good way to somewhat develop some of the characters, but as a result, it does feel like the pacing of the series as a whole has slowed down significantly because it's focusing on like these smaller stories about each of the characters, and really like in the grand scheme of things, uh they're mostly like just kind of feel inconsequential to everything else. Because it's just like these small little story arcs that, I mean, if I hadn't known any better, knowing that this was supposed to be trying to adapt the manga faithfully, I would probably actually think that these are filler arcs, because the way they're presented, they do kind of feel like filler arcs. But knowing that that's probably not what they are. I mean, but it like I said, it definitely feels that way. But
Mhm.
not bad filler, just kind of like it just feels like it's there to, if anything, just kind of like take up time. It's just more so, it just feels kind of like, I guess you'd say, like padding for the story.
Yeah.
But yeah, yeah. So that all being said, guys, until next time, we will see you all later.